So regular and predictable, one might think they've moved like this forever. What a contrast to things claimed by the first astronomers of ancient Mesopotamia and numerous cultures that followed. They watched planetary motions with a compulsive fear. Why would diligent astronomers insist that the planets were the towering gods of a prior time? Planets ruled the destiny of kings and kingdoms, and they were the agents of doomsday, the end of the world. What was it about planets that inspired such reverence and fear? The Babylonian priest-astronomer Berosus said that planets moving on different courses than today produced world catastrophe. In Greek, Roman, and Gnostic thought, this was ekperosis, a catastrophic meeting of the planets. But the memory of planetary disorder is echoed by numerous ancient sources. Plato expressed it, and so did Zoroastrian texts. The Hindu Mahabharata, Taoist teachings, and the Chinese bamboo books. Through festivals and symbolic rites, the cultures remembered the lives of the gods. With every temple construction, every sacrifice, every harvest, every installation of a king, every royal marriage, every New Year festival, the celebrants reenacted critical turns in the lives of the gods themselves. Were you to remove the stories of the gods, there would be no cultural content left in the early civilizations. Who were the gods? And why did the early astronomers declare that the most powerful gods were planets? Here's a clue. The mythic accounts are punctuated by terror and cosmic violence. Urgent prayers and hymns reenacted the deaths or ordeals of great gods, recounting how one world age passed violently into another. Several thousand years ago, events of beauty and terror provoked an explosion of human imagination. This was the myth-making epoch of human history. First came the enchanted realm, the theater of venerated gods and goddesses. The gods were prodigious. Their celestial habitat towered over the world, a model for temples and commemorative monuments on Earth. But the gods grew capricious. One celestial power metamorphosed into another. Preposterous creatures never seen on Earth roamed the sky. gods turned violent as heaven itself fell into chaos. Then celestial warriors and monsters appeared to battle in the heavens, wielding weapons of thunder and fire and stone. Our challenge will be to account for this outpouring of mythic content. He was the author of the book Worlds in Collision, first published in 1950, and several other books that followed. In these books he reinterpreted both planetary history and human history. A distinguished scholar, colleague of Albert Einstein, Velikovsky had claimed that planets formerly moved on unstable courses, and more than once a planet came close enough to Earth to cause global catastrophe. Most astronomers dismissed the book out of hand, and some threatened a boycott of the publisher Macmillan, forcing the company to drop the book when it was the #1 bestseller. But when the space age arrived, our probes of planets and moons revealed devastated surfaces, inspiring renewed interest in Velikovsky's claims. With Velikovsky's cooperation, I had the privilege of publishing a 10-issue series on his challenge to science. Velikovsky said that cosmic catastrophe left its marks on the now peaceful planets, our Earth included. He said that the planet Venus appeared in the sky as a comet, and that its near collision with the Earth decimated early civilizations. He said that electricity was highly active in these events. Planets moved on erratic courses, and on occasion they nearly collided as cosmic lightning bolts flew between the approaching bodies. And he said that human memories of these events constitute evidence that science cannot afford to ignore. It soon became clear to me that Velikovsky had opened the door to a new possibility, perhaps even a new understanding of the mythic archetypes as a whole. But why did the evidence always seem too preposterous to believe? Why did all of the archaic cultures stake everything on memories of the gods as towering bodies in a former sky? I was particularly enchanted by something Velikovsky proposed in a work still unpublished at the time. He claimed that, in the earliest remembered epoch, the planet Saturn dominated the sky, close to the Earth, presiding over the mythic Golden Age. It was an outrageous idea, and yet I found in it the inspiration for a life's work. Ancient cultures the world over insisted that an exemplary sun once ruled the sky. For the Egyptians, this former power was the creator Atum-Ra, ruling from the center and summit of the sky. In ancient Mesopotamia, we see the primeval sun as a great turning wheel in the heavens, and the astronomers named this body as the planet Saturn. It was from the Romans that we received the planet's name, Saturn. But an archaic Latin name for Saturn was Sol, the sun. In earlier Greek texts, the planet Saturn, called Kronos, was also named Helios, the sun. Even the alchemists preserved this preposterous identity. They called Saturn the best sun. Best sun, superior sun, exemplary sun. The core idea always pointed directly to the axis of the sky, the celestial pole around which the heavens visually turn. As improbable as it may seem, this is where the Egyptians located their primeval sun god, Atum. This motionless spot in the heavens is precisely where later astronomical traditions from Greece to Persia and China all claimed that Saturn had ruled the world, a contradiction of every principle we take for granted today. Ancient chroniclers insisted that the planet Saturn, now just a speck in the sky, had presided over the Golden Age, an epoch of abundance, cosmic harmony, and grandeur. The archaic name of Italy was Saturnia, and tradition held that this very name was given to the original site of Rome. The Sabbath, the special day of rest and reverence, was Saturni Dies, Saturn's Day, a day honored throughout the Mediterranean, the Near East, and beyond. The popular Roman festival, Saturnalia, was a symbolic return to the Saturnia Regna, Saturn's reign, the Golden Age. Much symbolic content of our own New Year's and Christmas celebrations will trace to the Roman Saturnalia and related ancient festivals. In one form or another, every culture that remembered Saturn's reign regarded the planet god as the father of kings, the father of the nation or the race. Ancient traditions identified the Ugaritic and Hebrew El as Saturn, and it was said that the Israelites once saw themselves as Saturn's children. In the same way, the Greeks invoked Kronos as their first father, and the Romans insisted that they were the true descendants of Saturn, arriving in Italy through the adventures of the legendary ancestor Aeneas. But there was a dark side to Saturn, reflecting the catastrophic end of the Golden Age. This was when, in the words of Manilius, Saturn, the first father, fell to the opposite end of the world axis. This sudden onset of chaos, when heaven itself seemed to fall out of control, has haunted civilizations across the millennia, erupting as doomsday anxiety, the fear that what happened once will happen again. It's almost impossible to believe that ancient people sacrificed their own children, either symbolically or literally, to the planet god Saturn. Saturn was remembered as the devourer of his own children, and as Moloch, demanding sacrifice, and as El, or the Elohim, commanding Abraham to sacrifice his own son, Isaac. In the face of evidence that cannot be denied, the reasonable course is to bring the catastrophic source of these memories into the light of day. my book The Saturn Myth, published by Doubleday in 1980, began the reconstruction of a spectacular formation formerly seen in the sky, a gathering of planets looming immense above the ancient witnesses. I was working with the mythic archetypes, cultures everywhere using different words and different symbols to describe eerily similar events. But the planetary model presented in the Saturn myth was far from complete. Amongst the greatest of enigmas was the cosmic wheel recorded by every ancient culture. Images of a wheel in the sky carved on stone are older than civilization itself. Many archaeologists see these wheels as an imagined vehicle of the sun rolling across the sky. But in its most common form, the cosmic wheel doesn't go anywhere. Often it rests on a stationary pillar, or atop a stairway, or ladder, or is turned by a rope while resting on an altar or table. And the spokes of the wheel are not functional as such. They are fluid and etheric. Archaic gods and heroes hold a wheel in their hands. A cosmic wheel served as the throne of gods and cultural heroes and wise men, symbolically replicated in the wheel thrones of kings on earth. The wheel throne of Buddha underscores our point. And even the popular footprint of Buddha recalls the same wheel in heaven. The inspiration did not come from our sun. Compare these prehistoric instances of the pictographic wheel from Ireland and from California. Different parts of the wheel are clearly evident. A large circle or sphere, though not always present, a central star, and a smaller, darker circle or sphere inside the star-like form. The images do not depict a single object, but three objects, as demonstrated here, where the artist placed the small dark sphere well below the central star. The stories begin with the appearance of this celestial formation, heaven, when heaven was close to the earth. The original unity of the sky formed by the Great Conjunction, when a straight line or arrow could pierce the hearts of the gathered powers. The motionless, superior sun, ruling before the present sun. The father of kings, and first in the mythic line of kings. And a dying or displaced god. In later times, the first astronomers identified this overarching ruler of the sky. They claimed it was the planet Saturn, remembered as the owner of the cosmic wheel before the god departed for distant realms. The astronomical traditions also name the central star as Venus, the mother goddess, and they name the darker reddish sphere as the planet Mars, the cosmic warrior. In these 3 hours, I intend to demonstrate that the stories of the gods are the stories of what happens to these celestial bodies. You're looking at reconstructed images of a formation in the heavens just a few thousand years ago. The configuration evolved through many phases, evoking reverence and awe, a model for kings and kingdoms for thousands of years. Great temples and cities, and sacred mountains all pointed back to the mythic age of gods and wonders. Let the world's first astronomers point the way for us. They knew that what the myths and hymns and prayers called gods were planets and aspects of planets. Planets appeared close to the earth in a heaven-spanning configuration. Memories of that celestial splendor still surround us, even if humanity later forgot much more than it remembered. Reconnecting with our forgotten past will be essential for our own cultural integrity, essential for the study of human consciousness, and essential for all of the sciences. Just a few thousand years ago, our ancestors witnessed a gathering of planets close to the Earth. An explosion of human imagination occurred, an outpouring of mythology and symbolism that defined cultures for thousands of years. Long after the celestial provocation itself was forgotten. In these early historical times, there are no records of the present planets, no diaries recording planetary motions or periods. Planets as we know them today did not exist. These were the gods, awe-inspiring, and at times capricious and terrifying. Early star worshippers speak of a great light of heaven, motionless in the sky, the Egyptian Atum or Atum Ra, the Sumerian An, the Babylonian Anu. And enigmatically, early astronomers knew the overarching figure as the planet Saturn, whose story will be a centerpiece of our third episode. In the beginning, the gathered powers were not seen as separate gods, but as the primeval unity of heaven, the perfect conjunction, or great conjunction of the Golden Age. A massive sphere hung in the sky, and in its center stood a radiant star surrounded by explosive streamers. Cultures the world over came to see this star in feminine terms as the mother goddess, the planet Venus. Remembered as the great star, the mother of all stars. This was the central eye, heart, and soul of the primeval sun, his animating life, power, and glory, and much more. One of the most enigmatic cultural themes is the transformation of the life-giving goddess into a monstrous form, attacking the world. This was the terrible goddess, raging in the sky with wildly disordered hair, or multiple flailing arms, a celestial spectacle radiating a paralyzing light. When instability and displacement occurred, the streamers discharging from Venus grew chaotic, giving the planet a frightful countenance. The angry goddess was a comet, the mythic prototype of comets. Immanuel Velikovsky's great comet, the planet Venus. Seen in front of this central star was a smaller, darker, reddish sphere. This was the mythic warrior, the masculine heart of the heart, the child in the womb, the child on the lap, the pupil of the eye, the axle of the cosmic wheel, the most active figure of world mythology. Sky worshippers everywhere knew the identity of this warrior, the victor over dragons and chaos monsters. This global identity of Mars as the greatest of warriors shouts to us an unrecognized history. On the great sphere of heaven, a bright crescent appeared, with the orb or star of Venus between its horns. Things never seen in our sky were once revered around the world. As the Earth rotated on its axis, the crescent marked out a cycle of day and night. Crescent below in the phase of greatest brightness, crescent above in the phase of dimming. Though our sun was present, casting its light on the configuration, it was not itself in the visual theater of the gods. I called this the polar configuration because the Earth itself rotated in alignment with the forms in the sky, placing these forms at a celestial pole around which the heavens visually turned. The configuration evolved through numerous phases. The number of streamers changed repeatedly, as did their observed form. Every change in relative position produced dramatic changes in the appearance of the configuration. One simple truth will change the future of science and our understanding of human history. The ancient sky bore no resemblance to the sky we see today. Above human witnesses, planetary formations hovered close to the Earth. One electrical form metamorphosed into another in the celestial dance of the mythic star goddess and the cosmic warrior, astronomically identified as the planets Venus and Mars. Ancient observers saw the head of the warrior king wrapped in the radiance of the star goddess. It was his crown of glory. And it was the warrior's magical protection, worn as a helmet or crest, but much more. The dancing Aztec god wore the rays of Venus as a crest, but also held the so-called half-star of Venus in an outstretched hand. And he even wore this protective radiance as his skirt. The theme is universal. The warrior's armor was the radiance of the great star, and that is the explanation for the unexplained radiant crown of kings. As the forms of the configuration changed, the mythic interpretations changed as well. In pictures and words, the ancient chroniclers recounted the cosmic conjunction of the goddess and the warrior. The goddess was the eye, and the warrior was the pupil of the eye. Two spheres in alignment inspired a mythical interpretation as an eye and pupil inscribed upon the hand of God. The 5 fingers of the hand were the visible aspects of an 8-spoked wheel in a different phase. Buddhist symbolists knew that the hand bore a secret relationship to the 8-spoked Dharma wheel. Buddha was the motionless axle of the wheel. Enthroned upon the hand of heaven, he was surrounded and protected by the celestial fire of the gods. Every form that arose provoked a variety of mythical interpretations, not just a single idea. The spokes of the wheel were the animating soul and power of the universal sovereign, exploding into life at sunset. That is the meaning of the mythic plant of life. Things seen in the sky provoked hundreds of imaginative images, and not one speaks for events in the heavens today, not a single one. Even when the concrete form of the cosmic original was forgotten, the imaginative idea persisted for thousands of years. Innumerable concrete details will not allow us to just make up explanations for the myths and symbols. Some symbols remained abstract, but more often they added mythical interpretation to the underlying form. And many mythical images, seemingly incompatible, will trace to the same tangible form. The plant of life was not just an attractive design element. It was a form in the sky, inspiring a story of vast influence. In his birth or rebirth, the warrior god emerged from the radiant flower. The diverse mythical interpretations and the larger stories told about these events all point to a unified substructure of human memory. A great wheel turned in the heavens, and it was remembered around the world. Even the modest displacement of the aligned powers was captured in ancient images. Why was the Egyptian goddess identified as the headdress of the warrior king? It's the underlying form that gives us the answer. A primeval sun ruled the world, shining most brightly in the night sky. A crescent came to adorn this primeval sun, and it certainly was not our moon. The great star of Venus rested between its horns, and visually seated within the star was the planet Mars. A luminous stream appeared to descend from Mars, the first form of the cosmic thunderbolt. Human imagination saw a sword or dagger thrust into the region below. The warrior god was his sword, envisioned also as an axial pin, peg, or mooring post of the turning sky. The same thing as the stem of the plant of life. And the pillar-like lower limbs of the goddess. The same form in the sky was seen as a protruding tongue of both the warrior and the angry goddess. A pronounced movement of Mars occurred close to but not precisely on the planetary axis. Now the celestial crescent appeared as the horns of the warrior himself, in his identity as the bull of heaven. And it should not surprise us that the foundation post bore the image of the bull at its apex. When it reached the earth, the stream presented the form of a great pillar or cosmic mountain. Perhaps it is too much to believe that the famous bull of heaven was just a pillar and shining horns. To these events we will trace the worldwide myths of the heaven-lifting cosmic giant, the first active form of the warrior hero. His upraised arms were precisely the same thing as the horns of the bull of heaven, a testament to the integrity of the substructure, the archetypes. In some phases with the movement of Mars, dust and electrified plasma streaming between Mars and Venus became visible to terrestrial observers. Even small changes in this dusty plasma stream, were we to view the formation from space, would create distinctive differences in the appearance of the configuration. The great kings of ancient times wore conical crowns in numerous and always enigmatic varieties. For these revered forms, the experts can find no referent in nature today. Yet the priestly chroniclers of antiquity knew that these crowns imitated the vestment of a cosmic warrior, the prototype of the warrior king on Earth. With progressive instability and displacement from the axis, the stream joining Mars and Venus spiraled outward. This was the mother goddess herself, the radiant eye, heart, and soul of the primeval sun, now externalized as a curling lock of hair. And the earliest sources leave no doubt that it was a visible form in the sky. The sidelock of the warrior king mimicked that of his predecessor, the cosmic warrior. This curling life breath provoked innumerable symbols, far more than we could include here. Just one example was the mooring post in the sky, signifying the outflow of the eye and the evolving form of creation itself. A critical turn came with the removal of the life breath curl, unleashing the terrible goddess and a cosmic crisis. In his rage, the Hindu Shiva tore out a lock of his hair, from which arose his own dark aspect, the monster Virabhadra, and close by the terrifying form of the angry goddess, whom we recognize as the comet Venus. From the episodes of disorder, a phase of celestial construction emerged, focused on the activity of the spiraling form, or rayed spiral, remembered as the serpent of creation. This was the expanded enclosure of the mother goddess herself, the motherland in the sky, the true subject of the archaic creation legend. The mythic home of gods and heroes lay within an enclosure formed by the body of the celestial serpent or dragon. The evolving forms noted here are provable phases in the biography of the mother goddess, largely ignored but confirmed at the level of concrete detail in the early cultures. The priests of ancient Egypt knew that the white crown was the mother goddess. They knew that the life breath curl and the revolving lock of hair were the same goddess. Across all of Egypt, the chroniclers remembered the luminous spiral with its radial projections as the agent of celestial construction. From north to south, they described the goddess, originally the Eye of Ra, taking the form of a flaming serpent, whose hieroglyph means goddess. And it was this very serpent that came to form an enclosure, the boundary of Terra, the celestial kingdom. Mesoamerican artists understood very well that the fire serpent or dragon enclosing the land of the gods had appeared as a rayed spiral. The created land of the gods, emerging from the dance of the goddess and the hero, presented 4 streams of light and life. Here was the motherland in the sky, the celestial model for every kingdom and city on earth, the lost land of mythic ancestors, divided by 4 rivers or animated by 4 explosive winds and turning as a great wheel in the sky. To be sure, the evolution of myth over time brought endless elaborations of the archetype. Yet even in the enthusiasm to extend the symbolism, the substratum of human memory does shine through. The complexities of the Aztec calendar wheel did not eliminate the axial role of the warrior hero, or the 4 exploding streams of life energy, or the circumscribing, often double-headed serpent, or the identity of that serpent as the fire of the gods. As a rule, later spiritual traditions did not displace these human memories either, but found in them the symbolic landscape for expressing insights and beliefs that would guide later interpretations of myth. Lastly, we must acknowledge one of the most pervasive symbols of world mythology. All mythic traditions agree that the land of the gods rested on the golden or fiery mountain of heaven. It is evident that the core symbols of human yearning, suffering, and devotion across the millennia trace to the very events from which the first civilizations themselves arose. Now the question must be asked: if the great mythic archetypes are explained by events unknown to our world, what can the electric universe and the leading edge of plasma science tell us about the ancient experience? The rise of science was a triumph over mythology, over magic and superstition. That's why the word science today implies reliability. The word myth means fiction, not true. And it turns out that the key to understanding the myths is the same key that is now helping us to understand objects in deep space, to understand the workings of the physical universe. That key is electricity. I came to a radical conclusion that the myths arose from extraordinary natural events. Our early ancestors witnessed things in the sky that are not seen today. The events were awe-inspiring, both beautiful and terrifying.
It was in 1994 that I was invited to come to the US to attend a conference which was dealing with the possibility that the ancient sky, as witnessed by our earliest forebears, was different to the one we see today. I'd been interested in this kind of idea because it could only be explained in terms of electromagnetic influences within the solar system. So it came as a bit of a shock and a surprise to see David Talbot showing slides at one of the sessions at the conference, which I recognized immediately as being similar to those of electric discharges in the laboratory.
It was wonderful for me personally to come to my first Cronia meeting and hear Dave Talbot, and I still want to see some of those slides that he showed again and again and again that explained the white crown of Egypt and the rest of these things that he showed us, all from mythology, all from thousands of years ago. These things clearly were seen by civilizations that never talked to each other from the far corners of the earth. It all just clicked together like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle in my mind.
A breakthrough for me came when I realized that many different cultures spread around the world use different words, different symbols, different myths to describe precisely the same formations in the sky. The Ouroboros, or celestial serpent biting its tail, for example, occurs on every habitable continent, but it has no ties to the world we now observe. Like all of the archetypes, it is part of an alien sky. A cosmic column rising to the center of the sky, holding aloft the wheel of heaven. And much more than a wheel, because this was the revolving cosmic temple, the city of the gods, the kingdom of heaven, always resting on the cosmic column. Then there's the image of the four rivers or pathways radiating from the center of the sky out to the boundary, the rim of the wheel. The simplest forms lead you invariably to the full story of world mythology. The hero's journey unfolds as the story of the wheel's axle. The mother goddess finds her identity in the star at the summit, the hub and spokes of the wheel.
From childhood on, I've always had a deep interest in mythology, and I remember that as a child I was trying to draw up genealogies of the gods as provided in Greek mythology, and I soon found out that it didn't work, nor did anything else in mythology seem to work. There was no singular fitting explanation that would make sense of these stories. So I basically laid this whole subject to rest, and I didn't look at it for many years, until I came across the work by Dave Talbot and Everett Cochran mainly, whose articles were real eye-openers for me. And as soon as I began to read these articles, it became clear to me that we were really looking here at a very important key to the unlocking of myth. And the recent findings provided by plasma physics are capable of providing that key. Based on the results we have seen so far in Dr. Perret's investigations with petroglyphs, which he matched successfully to laboratory experiments involving plasma, it has now become crystal clear and I think undeniable that the morphology of plasma as it manifests itself both in the laboratory and in space can account successfully for the major themes in mythology.
To find the true meaning of the myths, we follow a forensic approach. The purpose is to expose the points of agreement between the different cultures. Because here at the level of the archetypes, everything is unified. There are no isolated themes of myth at the level of the substructure. This is like a holograph. Follow one archetype and its links to other archetypes, and you will find one story told around the world. The sun just dominates our sky as the source of light and warmth and life itself on Earth. And this preeminence of the sun is so clear and obvious that it remains a mystery why virtually every ancient culture insisted that before the present sun there was a quite different luminary ruling the sky. The central sun, the superior sun, the best sun, the motionless sun. And all of these cultures, whatever may be the meaning of these traditions, are insisting that the sky has changed. Of course, our ideas about the sun have continually changed. Only a few centuries ago, the sun was a campfire or ember in the sky. Then early in the 20th century, under the influence of gravitational theory, the sun was seen as a gravitationally collapsing nebular cloud. In the atomic age, astronomers began to visualize the sun in terms of a nuclear furnace hidden at its core. But now we're in the age of plasma science, with discoveries of the electric currents in space. And it's inconceivable that these discoveries would not change the picture of the sun again. What I find so fascinating about the electric model of the sun is not just that it's a challenge to a long-standing theory, but that it opens the door to the ancient world, to an electric sky. The electromagnetic phenomena that we now observe on the surface of the sun and in the vicinity of the sun are direct pointers backwards to the plasma formations that were seen above the ancient sky worshippers.